In order to complete the user CRUD, we're going to start out by writing the create method in order to allow us to create users. Now, the first thing I want to point out to you is that this is different from simply instantiating a new user. With that, we did something like user equals new user. What we're talking about now is writing a method that will take that instance and allow it to be saved to the database. So we can attach attributes to it, the first name, the last name, the username, the password, and then we can tell it, all right, save that to the database. And we'll do that using a method that we'll call create. Now, because we're going to be working with the database, the very first thing we're going to want to do is use global to bring in database. And that is the variable that we had already defined that has an instance of our database object. So then we can use it to run queries, for example. Now I'm going to post in some comments here just to remind you that we don't want to forget our SQL syntax and our good SQL habits. So I've gone ahead and just reminded you sort of what the basic structure of a insert statement ought to look like, and then made a couple of notes about our good habits that we're going to put single quotes around all the values, and we're going to escape all the values to prevent SQL injection. Now, keeping those points in mind, we're ready to actually write the SQL. Now I'm going to go ahead and just paste it in here and let you take a look. We're going to insert into the table users, and right now I'm going to go ahead and just say users. I'm not going to try and find that dynamically, even though if you'll remember up here at the top, we define that as table name. For now, we're just going to go ahead and put it in hard-coded. We can abstract it later, and we'll do that. Then I've got the field names. So we've got username, password, first name, and last name. Those are the fields that we're going to try and update. I left ID out of there because ID will auto-update on its own because we've set it to auto-increment when we created the database. So I don't need to send a value for that. And then I've got values, and then notice I've got a single quote here, followed by the first value, which is going to be username, and I'm using escape value, that method we wrote in the database class that will escape things so that they're safe from MySQL injection. And then I've got a single quote, comma, space, and then another single quote. Now from this single quote down to this single quote is one value. I've just put the single quote up on the line before it. Don't let that fool you or throw you off. You need to be careful and make sure that you have all these pairings of single quotes correct. And then I've got commas between all of them, and then I've got the last one here, comma, and then close the parentheses on values. So be very careful about your SQL syntax. Make sure that you've got it all right. But when we're done, then we're simply ready to run our query statement. Running this SQL query is very simple because we coded our database class, and we have a method called query. So we simply say, run this query. And if it returns true, then return true. If not, then it return false. And that will let us know whether it happened or not. Now, there's one additional thing that we need to take care of with an insert statement. This is a very important step. We want to also update the ID attribute of the object to be whatever the database just saved it as. We don't know what that is because it was auto-incrementing, and there could be several insert statements happening from different users at the same time. So we want to tell the database class to use its insert ID method to give us that ID value, and then we'll put it in this object. So now we already had the username, the password, the first name, and the last name stored. Now we also have the ID. So this is all there is to it. Now we've coded a create action that will take whatever the current parameters in this object and will add them to the database. So let's test this out. I'm going to close up that file, and let's go into public admin, and I'm going to take the index.php action, and I'm just going to do file duplicate on it. And I'm going to have a copy, and I'm just going to call it test. And this is where I'm just going to do some testing. I'm going to open this up, and I'll go ahead and leave all the header and everything in there. I'm just going to take out the HTML that we had. This will initialize it. It'll make sure we're logged in. So testing our new create method is going to be easy. We just simply instantiate a new user, then give it all of the attributes that we want, and then tell it create. Now we could make this last line into an if-then statement that would, perform one set of actions if it created or not successfully, but I'm going to actually look in the database to see if it got created or not. So before we test this out, I'm just going to open up my PHP MyAdmin that I have so that I can see what's in the database. And it'll make it nice and easy to see when these records get added. So you can see I've already got the user that I created earlier. Refreshing it just shows that same user. Now what I want to do is use that test page, and I'll create a new window here, and we'll go to Photo Gallery Public, admin test.php. I'll need to log in first. Secret PWD. All right, and now let's go to that test page. test.php. All right, now I don't see anything on the page, but that's because I didn't actually echo anything back. It should have still made its entry in the database. And you'll see there it is, John Smith with the password that I gave it. Now, if you've written that create statement, then you should get the same result. If not, you'll want to go back and debug it till you get a similar result. In the next movie, we'll see how to code the update method.